I would. I assume that you guys are both massive fans of what is that pile of shit record that they brought out when David came back? Illud Divinum Insanus.
I really like the album.
Really?
Yeah. I think Radical is a really cool song.
It's just messing around.
Well, okay. I'll make a confession that probably it'll make yours seem less shameful, and that is my favorite song off of Illud Divinum Insanus was the Combi Christ remix of Destructos versus the Earth. Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 164 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, I am catching up with Riku Saressalo and Sebastian Frigren of the awesome Finnish death metal band Devenial Verdict. They put out one of the best albums of 2022, in my opinion. The record in question, of course, being Ashblind, which featured on my top 30 of the last 12 months. So I spoke to them about the album. We spoke about signing to Transcending Obscurity Records, the Finnish scene, and we covered a whole host of other topics. Great guys, you are thoroughly going to enjoy this, and that will be coming your way very shortly. But first, I have not done a demo of the week in quite some time, so as luck would have it, a atmospheric black metal duo out of Sweden recently approached me and shared with me their first ever single. The band in question is called Black Birch. The single is called Weak, and I have decided that it is time for the legions to hear it right here, right now. You just listened to the debut single by Black Birch out of Sweden. The song is called Weak, a fantastic first impression, at least by my standards. I hope you guys enjoyed that as well. If you did like what you heard, then make sure that you head over to their Bandcamp, buy the song, and let them know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere that sent you. I will post the link to their Bandcamp in the description of the podcast if you wish to do so. Also, if the spirit moves you to do so and you are new to the podcast, make sure you elbow drop the subscribe button on your platform of choice. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and also head over to the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store, which I will be relaunching at some point. But work at the moment, I've got to say, is absolutely insane. So bear with me. For the time being, though, there's some great t-shirts, hoodies, and whatnot that you can buy on there. And, of course, every cent that I make on the Teespring store gets plowed straight back into the show. So if you do want to show your love and support for Into the Necrosphere, that is the way to do it. Also, most importantly, make sure that you are following my fellow horsemen of the podcast Apocalypse. Every Monday, Brandon Legion brings you Horrorwolf 666, which features interviews with writers, directors, screenwriters from the horror genre. On a Tuesday, I am casting hexes and slaying posers with Into the Necrosphere, the podcast you're listening to or watching right now. On a Wednesday, my friend and brother Mike Hill, also the frontman for Scorpion Throne and Tombs, brings you Everything Went Black. He also returns on a Thursday with the excellent, perhaps my favorite podcast of the week. The show in question, of course, Necromaniacs, and his co-hosts are Jeff Kashid and Mike Scandado. I have a bone to pick with Scandado, though. I'm going to talk about it more in the news rant. But in the last episode of Necromaniacs, he did say that he liked some, but not all of the picks that I put in my top 30. So we've got a 666 countdown crossover episode coming up soon where we're going to be talking about some of our favorite 90s death metal releases. And it is on that occasion that Mike Scandado will be made to stand tall before the man and explain his actions. I am fucking around, of course, but I'm curious to know which of the releases on my top 30 he did not like. By the way, if you've not listened to the top 30 of 2022 just yet, they are episodes 161, 162, and 163. I massively appreciate the huge response I've had to those so far. But if you haven't checked them out yet, then make sure that you do. Finally, my friends, on a Sunday, my friend Carl Hykara, the Reverend Carl Hykara, brings you the Horned Lord's message on the Holy Sabbath. I'm actually going to be on his podcast. That podcast is Soul Knox. And we're going to be discussing one of my favorite horror movies of all time, The Exorcist 3. When that happens, I will, of course, let you know. But for now, do make sure that you check out his podcast and you check out my fellow horsemen of the podcast Apocalypse, as I said. For now, though, sit tight as I welcome Sebastian and Riku of Devenial Verdict. Also, stick around after that conversation, because I won't be doing reviews this week. I will do a proper review roundup next week, but I will be serving up a meaty mouthful of my weekly news rant. There are new tracks by Anarkhon, I believe is the band's name, Dying Fetus, and a host of others to listen to. And I'm pretty confident that on the Blabbermouth Democrat's Guide to Rock Music, we're going to have plenty to talk about. So stick around. Loads coming your way right after this. All right. So, gentlemen, welcome to Into the Necrosphere. I've been dying to speak to you ever since I heard Ash Blind. I had a friend of mine send it to me one day and say that it's something that I absolutely have to check out. And I think as I've reflected on my top 30 of 2022, I feel like the longer I've spent with that record, the more it makes a case to probably move itself up progressively. So I do think, like in hindsight, I almost feel sometimes like I need to revise what those numbers look like, because the record is just absolutely stunning. How do you feel
Thank you
about
very
it
much.
since? I mean, it came out at the end of October, and I think all of the response I've seen for it so far has been uniformly positive. How do you feel about it, now that you've kind of have had, say, 3-4 months to live with the response, live with what people think of the record?
Well,
it has been totally overwhelming. Like,
yeah, the positive response has been overwhelmingly positive, yeah, and I couldn't ask more for a first album.
yeah, and kind of was a big surprise for us all. Like,
Yeah, even though we were all happy with the album, we
yeah,
really liked the album, and we had confidence in the album. It still amazed us.
yeah, like we can call ourselves like a real band now.
Yeah,
It's
finally.
it's so weird.
Yeah, and even
Well, I mean, I think for a lot of folks that are discovering you now, they might not realize that, and I base this on Metal Archive, so there is a degree of hearsay involved in this, but they might not realize the fact that you guys have been active as a band since 2006.
Yeah,
yeah, our drummer Okko formed the band in high school actually, with some of his mates, and I joined in 2008, and after that we've done a few EPs and a few demos, but nothing like this. It took
No.
its sweet time, but
yeah,
it deserved to take its time.
Yeah.
So how come it took so long? I mean, 17 years of existence, and if you joined in 2008, I mean, that's like 2000, so 15 years, give or take. But I guess, yeah, let me ask that question first, and then I'll get to my follow-up
Yeah.
question. But yeah, what took you guys so long?
Basically, the time was right now. We did a few EPs, and after the last EP, Soul Thirst, we had plans for a full length. We had lots of songs. We even thought of recording, but it just never materialized. And um, I don't know. We just didn't have the drive to do the album. Then we didn't have the vision, so to say.
Yeah,
And
I think everyone has their like own path to like
yeah,
walk.
Yeah. And
between 2012 and 2022,
Yeah.
it's like everyone has their own careers and own lives and everything, and
yeah.
we kind of get back together like 2020 or something.
yeah, we had this. We all have active lives beside the band, and life gets in the way sometimes. But somehow we decided to make this album now. In 2020, we recorded the drums and vocals and guitars and bass, and
Yeah, it was like,
Yeah.
let's make this album already.
yeah,
And then we
let's just do it.
we just made the
Let's-
decision and made few songs that like we had 6 songs ready for like 5 years.
Yeah.
And after that we made the rest, and then we have Ashblind here.
And I was that was gonna be my follow-up question, actually. What sort of time frame are we talking about as far as how long these some of these songs have been around for? You mentioned 2012. Is that kind of when conceptually you started with some of the ideas that ended up on the record?
Actually, I think so, because even though the EPs that are on Spotify, like Unborn God, Corpus, and Soulthers, they are vastly different between themselves, and even to these even to Ashblind, but they have the same kind of ideas and same kind of like sorrowful melodies in them.
Yeah, like sprinkled around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was a small idea in the back of our minds even then, that what we want to do, and we just found ourselves.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think the first riff, because I knew you will you will ask this question. I thought about it, and I think the opening riff for World Breaker was composed in 2015, and I think that it's the first riff
Yeah,
for this album.
Problem is was one of the first songs also made for the
Yeah,
album.
So
Yeah.
it's like this, like the range is like 10 years.
Yeah.
Here.
So when you listen to this record, it definitely sounds like, I mean, you guys don't sound like Youngbloods when you hear the music, and I think even if when people look at it as a debut, it sounds very fully formed. There's a vision of the band that sounds to me to be very fully realized in the music that I'm hearing. It doesn't sound like, there's sometimes when you hear a debut, and I'm sure you'll know that the albums I'm referring to, or you'll have an example in your mind of what I'm referring to. You'll listen to a record and you'll it'll feel like this band has got potential, but they're probably an album, maybe 2 albums away from kind of getting to where they need to be. You guys have come on the scene and just, it's kind of one and done. You kind of feel like, okay, these guys know what they're doing, and they have a very clear and very outlined view of what this music should sound like. But my question is, having been around now for as long as you have, how different is the end result of Ashblind to what you had originally envisioned for Devenial Verdict when the two of you started playing together with the rest of the guys in the band?
It's almost like a mirror image, because when I joined, like the audition song for me was "Killed Christian" by D-Side, and we just wanted to play.
Oh, really?
We just wanted to play. And I didn't even have a microphone then, so I sang it to a bass drum mic at the time. But we just wanted to play like brutal death metal as fast as possible and as brutal as possible. Like we wanted to be almost like a Dying Fetus clone.
Yeah, that's where we were going for, like.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a mirror image of that vision back then.
I was about to say, I mean, it's still very heavy. It's definitely not a Dying Fetus clone, that's for sure. It's definitely very heavy. But I think a lot of folks, you kind of mentioned brutal death metal. I think when a lot of people think of Finnish, the Finnish metal scene, or especially the extreme metal scene, they either think of Amorphous or they think of Beherit, and it's like these two extremes. But they don't think about the fact that, over the years, Finland has been responsible for some, really heavyweight brutal death metal bands. One of them, which I think is criminally overlooked nowadays, is Incision. I remember when Incision came out, everyone was like, Jesus Christ, how fucking heavy is this? And then it's almost like they've been criminally forgotten over the last couple of years. But I've got to ask you, Riku, how did that audition go? Because Kill the Christian is a cool song. It's a song that would be, you need to know your shit to be able to pull it off.
It went actually well.
You're still here, so.
I'm still here. Yeah. And they decided, the guitarist back then, he was like super elated and was like, yeah, you're in band. That's awesome. And drummer was like, that's okay. But it was fun audition, to be honest.
Yeah. And had you guys, so when you guys all kind of got together, had you known each other from school days? Because if I go by the Metal Archives statistics, you would have all been about 15, 16 when this band started coming together.
I came in the band as a total outsider. I didn't know any of them. I had seen Sebastian's old band live once, and our drummer's brother's band, like a few months before, actually a year before I went to the audition, but I didn't know any of the guys.
And me and Okko know each other from high school, and we used to play together like back then already. So
yeah, and even before Sebastian joined the band, he was like a fill-in. He played not drums, but guitar and bass in various different shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Sebastian, you've been involved in a bunch of other bands, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about some of those bands, and are some of those bands still going?
Yeah. For example, Dirt, which I think is mentioned in Metal Archives, is still active, and we're making our second album, and then Devenial Verdict, and then Nuclear Omnicide, which I joined to play the bass. 2017, and there are my like active bands right now.
Drudkh being, for those that don't know, that's more like traditional heavy metal. Nuclear Omnicide, more kind of thrash.
Yeah, thrash crossover kind of stuff going on. Yeah.
But I would imagine Devenial Verdict is getting a lot more attention now since Ashblind came out, because I mean it's definitely a the thing that's great about it, it's a record that immediately stands out from everything else. I can hear influences of bands like Ulcerate in what you guys do, but it has a very distinct sound, all of its own, which is kind of part of the charm.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So you mentioned Deicide as being some of the heritage. What are some of the other bands that over the years have influenced you and have helped kind of shape this vision of what the band has ended up sounding like?
Well, there's the band you mentioned, Ulcerate is one of the big ones, and then
Gorguts and
Gorguts,
Morbid Angel,
and Behemoth, to some extent.
Yeah.
to mention a few.
Yeah.
Behemoth is them I have some thoughts on. I think the older Behemoth stuff I'm down with. I think Nurgle has begun to sour me for Behemoth with some of the remarks he's made of late, especially about the fact he keeps saying that people shouldn't start bands, everything sounds the same. That's worked on me. Ulcerate, Morbid Angel, less so, but that last Ulcerate record, I think I spoke about it a couple of episodes ago. Stare into Death and Be Still. I mean, it is. That's when you like when you hear a paradigm shift in a scene, that to me is like hearing a paradigm shift. It's like nothing's ever going to be the same. Like nothing is going to be measured in the same way again after you hear this record.
I can pretty much say that all of our worlds like became different when we heard Ulcerate for the first time. It was what was the album?
2012.
Yeah, 2012 we heard Ulcerate, and it hasn't been the same since.
Yeah.
We even had the chance to open for them in 2017 in Helsinki.
Yeah,
really? What was that like?
Yeah, a dream come true.
It was awesome.
Really cool guys, and like Jamie St. Merat, who's like crazy drummer. He just like spoke with us about like Finnish beers like 5 minutes before the show, and didn't warm up or anything. Then just go to the stage and on the stage and like does with what he does best. Like
goes on stage and just turns in a fucking inhuman performance.
Yeah,
again,
Matt
Prizzo of the Slaves of the Underground podcast, he was talking about it on their last episode because they saw them on this Mayhem and Werewolves tour that they just did of Australia, and he was like, if you watch him play, it's like it doesn't feel like it should be possible to be able to play like that.
It's inhumane. We saw them a couple of months ago in Helsinki with Mögele and our label mate Sisyphean, and they were once again crazy good. One of the best shows of last year.
How do they go over with a Finnish crowd? Because again, it's kind of hard to put a bead on what folks in Finland like. You look at Germany and it's power metal, and it's there's certain countries that seem to they seem predisposed to a certain style of music. But like a band like Ulcerate, I feel like we'll have markets where they do unbelievably well, and markets where I just feel people might not get them.
It's basically those who know.
Yeah.
The place was like 80% capacity at their show, which was pretty good. The time we played with them, I think it was almost sold out. But also it is a cult name in Finland.
Yeah.
What was the Finnish scene like as you guys were kind of growing up, and how much of the we're talking about influences internationally, but I guess domestically, how much did that scene in Finland influence you guys as a band, and also sort of how connected were you to that scene?
The scene was basically death thrash, and many bands were trying to copy Bodom. Or Ensiferum or some other melodic death metal band, and there were lots of bands. I think there were, to be frank, too many bands at the same time. But for me personally, the Finnish metal scene played almost no part in inspiration because I just didn't either get it or want to get it. It wasn't anything that different for me because there were so many other bands from abroad that were better in my opinion.
Yeah, I think like 2010 didn't have like a death metal scene.
No.
Which we have here right now.
Yeah, the scene almost died. I don't know why, but there were so many awesome bands back in the day, but now there are no more. But there are some cool new bands like Former of 17 or 18.
Next generation.
The next generation of Finnish death metal, and those bands are awesome.
So I was going to ask you as a follow up, what is the scene like right now? You mentioned it. It definitely feels to me I'm hearing more and more great stuff coming out of Finland again. Where I agree with you, for a while it was quiet. It was. if you weren't a fan of music like Insomnium. I like Insomnium, but a lot of the bands that sound like Insomnium, I'm less of a fan of. If you weren't a fan of that kind of music or fucking Teresis and bullshit like that, you were sort of out in the wilderness a little bit. But it feels like that's like the tide is starting to turn a little bit there.
Yeah, there's actually a surge of new bands, mostly from Helsinki area, like young guys that play crazy good death metal, like Azathoth, Cryptic Hatred, which is becoming a household name. There's Malformed, Disguised Malignance, all great bands and all comprised of high school kids, basically. And then there are great friends, Omnivortex, who are making their second album right now. Good technical death metal.
Morbific.
Yeah, Morbific also.
And Solothus.
Galvanizer.
Yeah.
And our bassist's other band, Church of the Dead. All prime examples of great Finnish death metal.
Do you guys consider yourself to be a pure death metal band? Because I definitely wouldn't. I feel like you're one of those bands that are like Immolation, where Immolation could very, very easily straddle. I mean, they could go play with Marduk and they could go play with Cannibal Corpse, and they're going to go over well with both crowds. I can see you guys going out with a black metal band and being absolutely loved, and I can probably see you go out with Dying Fetus and people will get into it too.
Yeah, we played with Imperial Triumphant last year in Helsinki, but I think we're death metal.
Yeah,
I don't
basically.
I don't want to classify us as anything else because the roots are in death metal, and we think that death metal is by far like the
most open, like
most open and most diverse genre of extreme music.
Yeah.
It's very interesting you say that. I've always felt that about black metal, less so than death metal. I would definitely say I feel like death metal is starting has turned a corner a little bit.
Yeah.
But I would say there was a period of time for me with death metal where the scene became quite stale. And again, I think I credit bands like Ulcerate for what they've done to drive it forward. I mean, there were bands that were breaking the mold a little bit, Cattle Decapitation, Nile, bands like that. But as I said, around 2018, it started to sort of swing in the right way. There were just bands were doing a lot of different stuff. Like there was definitely, at least from my observation, there was more conservatism in death metal, creatively speaking, than there was in black metal.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm a big black metal fan of myself. I listen to mostly black metal, but in a way, I think black metal is more chained to its roots, to the Norwegian side of the black metal. Even though, like Imperial Triumphant, there are crazy bands who do just weird stuff that break the mold. But I'm happy to say that death metal nowadays isn't just the same, just copying like Death and Obituary and Morbid Angel.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It definitely isn't, which is great, and kind of that's what's making it exciting and has given it a fresh, a burst of fresh air. What I would say though is you sometimes you just want some barbarian shit.
Yeah,
and I mean, have you heard the new Sanguinizabog?
I haven't heard. No.
Jesus Christ.
I hear it's kind of like cavemanish stuff.
Dude, it's total caveman stuff. Imagine if you took all of the steroids in the world and you gave it to John Gallagher. That's probably the record that he would end up making. So.
Sounds
but, I mean, definitely with the avant-garde stuff as well. Like, I think if we sort of stick with the Finnish scene, Oranzi Pazuzu is another great example of a band doing something that is totally it's totally outside of anything that anybody else is doing, but they still definitely are easily identifiable as a black metal band.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great band. I've seen them live a few times, and I always fall into a trance during the show.
Yeah. You fall into a trance and you listen to their music as well.
Yeah.
I remember listening to that Mistar and Kinsey record, and it was just like you get to the end of the album and you're like, where did that time go? Like I just feel like I've just sat here pausing, letting it wash over me.
Yeah.
Getting just or backtracking for a second to kind of you mentioned kind of meeting each other in school and things like that. I'm always curious about this when
Mm.
it comes to other countries, given my own experiences of growing up in South Africa. What is the kind of metal scene like for a dude who's in school? Like, are there a lot of kids at school that tend to listen to it? Do you tend to be looked at as the outsider and the scumbag if you're into metal? Like, I mean, I was, widely known as not for any justifiable reason, but Jackie Smith, Satanist, devil worshipper, listens to the worst and most evil bands. That was when I was still into bands like Metallica. When I graduated onto Deicide and Slayer and things like that, then it was, they didn't know that those bands weren't in their books that warned them about it. So, they must have thought I turned a corner. But you understand what I mean? You definitely get it in South Africa, in a very Christian country like that. You're not one of the in crowd if you're into metal. It's a very conscious decision that you make that I'm going my own way now. Is it the same in Finland?
It's actually both, because there are lots of people who play and listen to metal, and if you listen to metal, you're almost bound to play in a band at some point of your life, and at the same time, people think you're a weirdo and look at you funny.
Yeah, but I think when in high school, like the big three Finnish bands peaked, like him, Nightwish, and Children of Bodom, like hit the charts.
Those became mainstream.
Yeah,
time.
and then Lordi won the Eurovision
I was just about to
contest.
say Lordi won the Eurovision, but Lordi is, I mean, that's terrible. That's a national embarrassment, I would say.
Oh no. Well, yeah, it was pretty common to like meet a metalhead on the street or in the school. It was kind of phase for someone.
Yeah,
for somebody.
It was totally a phase for some people, but here we are. 16 years later and still playing metal and listening to the same bands.
But it was kind of cool. Everybody was playing and
there were
listening to metal, and
every weekend there were like 5 shows at youth houses, and you had to almost pick and choose what bands you want to see.
That is fucking cool. That's again, you didn't really. You had quite a DIY scene in South Africa, but you never. I mean, there weren't really any international bands that came to play. When there was, it was obviously a very big deal. But a lot of the DIY stuff. I mean, the scene itself, the bands. I don't know what it is. South Africa does an awful lot of things very, very well, but unlike a country like Australia, that's also kind of quite removed from the international scene, their own domestic scene, in my view, is fucking shit. There's 1 or 2 decent bands, and the rest is unlistenable rubbish. Whereas Australia, by contrast, or New Zealand, as we were talking about Australia earlier, there are fantastic bands there. Many. And Australia is one of those one of those countries right now that seems to just be churning them out on a conveyor belt. It's like every other day there's like a new Australian project that comes my way, and I'm like, fuck me, this is incredible. But the phase thing, I don't know how you guys have experienced it, but I've definitely, my observation of the metal phase, quote unquote, I feel like I feel the folks that had that phase, they were people that were generally socially awkward, outcasts. No one was going to be there. None of the in crowd was going to be their friend. And because metal is a reasonably accepting scene, and we're generally cool to most people who were cool to us, I think they felt like they could they felt comfortable there, and they felt they could, they felt protected. And then 3-4 years in, maybe they managed to make a few new friends. And then you meet up with them, a couple of years after that, and you say, "Oh, you still into this music?" "Oh, no, I grew out of that now."
Yeah. I grew out of it.
And the distinction for me is definitely, I think the people that are truly into this, it was like the art chose them; they didn't choose the art. And then I think the converse is true for somebody who goes through the phase, if they chose to be a metalhead, quote unquote. They were always only going to be there for a temporary period of time. And weirdly enough, like if you think about some of the ridiculous behavior you see at shows, I think a lot of it sits with those people. I'd be surprised if many of those people are around for more than 5-6 years. After they've outgrown their Slipknot phase, they're off to listen to Lady Gaga or something like that. They're not going to stay. They're not going to stay with the scene like the three of us have.
Yeah. I think that's true. there were some guys in my high school that were into bands and they had guitars, and when they graduated, they just sold their guitars and bought some cars or other. They shaved their heads and went to study like business and economics. And it wasn't cool
Yeah,
anymore.
they tell the stories like when I was a kid, I used to do that.
Yeah.
Like okay,
Yeah. I listened to a bit of rock when I was young. I mean, I work in a very corporate job now, and I've had that exact same conversation with people. Like, they'll be like, they'll find out that I do, because I work in a position of quite significant responsibility, and they'll find out about the podcast, or they'll find out that I used to write for a music website, or they'll see me wear a T-shirt or something on a call, and they're like, "Oh, you into that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." Most of the time, they can't work out what the logo is anyway. And then you like, and then it's always like, "Oh yeah, when I was young, I went to a Slipknot show."
yeah, once.
I hate to break it to you, the music I listen to would make Slipknot sound like a fucking trip to the supermarket. It's there's no comparing. There's no comparing what I'm into to that nonsense.
Yeah, at least modern Slipknot. That's soft rock almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I must admit I didn't. I think the first two records have their moments, but in the main, if I want to listen to truly aggressive music, then I'll listen to hardcore. Or I'll listen to the original and best, which is SOD, Speak English or Die.
Yeah.
That's truly aggressive shit.
Yeah.
That's heavy stuff.
Now, we're talking about bands that kind of color outside the lines. You guys are with an absolutely perfect label for those types of bands. In Transcending Obscurity. How did that deal come about? And just bear with me 10 seconds. The dog is making a racket here. I'm just going to let her out.
Yeah. Okay.
She's like she's a mainstay fixture on most of my podcasts, anyways. But anyway, So
I should.
Yeah, the Transcending Obscurity deal. How did that happen?
It actually happened quite organically because our friend Kari, who sings in Sepulchre Curse and Solothus, and Sepulchre Curse is also on Transcending Obscurity. He had kind of nudged us that way, and he had told Kunal, the label manager, about us before, so he was in the know. And then the album was finished. We made the mixing and mastering process.
It was ready to go.
And then we just sent out some songs to some labels. And Kunal answered us pretty much immediately, and we started ironing things out.
Yeah. And we just couldn't be happier with the result because
I was just about to say, without getting you to dish the dirt on your label boss, what is it like working with Kunal? I have to say, I've only observed him from afar. We're connected on Facebook and things like that, but I'm super impressed with what he has been able to do with Transcending Obscurity Records, because he's number one, he's putting out a huge amount of really, really high quality releases. I mean, he put you guys out last year. Veil Burner is another one that comes to mind. So I fucking love that Veil Burner record. Yeah. But he's got a bunch of top notch bands on his label. I mean, he also did, which folks might forget, he did the first Guerrilla record, which I still think that band has got the potential to become like the next behemoth. Yeah. But he's running it all from probably one of the locations of the world that you would least expect, like a rising titan in the metal world to come from.
He's a busy guy, but one of the things that you can really tell, he enjoys metal and he just wants to promote metal. His life's work seems to be pushing death metal and black metal across the world.
Yeah.
And now he's organizing the Transcending Obscurity Fest in May in Prague. We're playing there as well, and he's just super hyped about all the bands and
like arranging it so he can see all the bands live. And meet the bandmates.
I was about to say, it's booking his own birthday party, basically.
Yeah. Actually, our drummer is celebrating his birthday while we're there, so it's going to be a huge party.
How many people does he have working for him? Like, how big is the actual the infrastructure around Transcending Obscurity?
We don't have any any data on that. Sorry.
Yeah,
He's got his cats, and that's
His cats are
bunch of cats.
and the guy who
Yeah.
makes the layouts for the albums.
Yeah, yeah,
There you go. No, because as I said, I mean, you're absolutely right in that he works himself half to death. I think because
Yeah.
there's a lot of bands on the label, and again, I think the bands are starting to pick up. Obviously, you guys just mentioned now about playing that festival, but you've started to play shows elsewhere, like because I know you mentioned earlier you've got careers, jobs, and stuff outside of music, but would you want to see this become a band that becomes a full-time touring concern? What would be I guess what would be the ideal scenario for you? Is it something where you just stick to playing one-offs, or if an offer came round, say, and let's use them as an example again. Dying Fetus said, we checked you out on Into the Necrosphere. You're amazing. We'd love to have you on tour with us. Here's 30 dates. Come and play. Would you do that?
100% immediately. Yeah.
yeah,
Jobs get quit, everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just tell my boss that I need a few weeks off.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
that would
could
be the dream.
arranged, yeah. The dream would be to play shows like in different countries and abroad and tour and stuff.
I mean, your music is also very, very complex. How difficult is it for you to recreate that when you're on stage, and also keep the audience captivated? Because when they're there, they're on the booze and they are not necessarily paying as much attention as what they should. Like, I definitely feel like you guys aren't a band that you just have on in the background and go, I'm gonna get drunk with my friends now. You might do that, but you're gonna get 20-30% of the experience of actually paying attention to it and absorbing what's being thrown at you.
Well, since I just sing and I shout, so I think I try to captivate the audience as much as I can with my performance, and even as we have the newish live look, I have the metal mask, and the guys have the paint on their faces and the hoods and everything. It's becoming more of a performance, and like, yeah, it's becoming more like a show. We're not just dudes in shorts and band shirts prancing on the stage.
Yeah, and musically, I think the arrangements of the songs are made that way, so we can, like, how do you say, like, play them live.
Yeah.
Like, they will sound the same as on the record.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the having a concept and having having it be more of a show. I really do have a real issue with bands that think that it's okay to turn up and basically have people witness a glorified band rehearsal. But like the metal mask and the hoods and stuff like that, like where did you guys come up with that idea? Where's that sort of where's that stemmed from?
It was my idea.
It was his idea.
At first, it had I was brewing it for years, to be honest. Since Soul Thirst and more of the songs became more like progressive and atmospheric, and I thought wouldn't it be great if we had like corpse paint, not like full on corpse, but just black around the eyes and something like that. And I just kept on thinking about it. It would be so cool, and I came to rehearsal and, hey guys, I have this idea that I don't think it fits us. And then I just one time I just started doing makeup for shows, and we started wearing all black everything. And then last summer I decided I'm gonna buy a mask.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah. So I bought this metal mask.
Yeah.
I had sewn some fabric to it, so it's a full on like a hood with the mask. And I bought this long hoodie robe, and I looked like a character from Dark Souls. And the guys were like, "That's cool, let's do it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took some convincing.
Do you keep that on with you throughout the whole show, the mask?
I take the mask off maybe in the last one or two songs. Last show I took it off on the last song just before, and removed it like super theatrical and held it in the sky like on my hands like it was a severed head or something.
Yeah. I was about to say, how difficult is it for you to do that style of vocal, whilst you've got a mask on?
It actually doesn't pay any it doesn't make it any more difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my style of vocals is more of like a shout, so I have to keep the mic farther away from my mouth than if I were doing just the basic death gurgles where where I would be basically kissing the mic. But
yeah. How did that vocal style of yours? How did that evolve? I mean, like, because I think when it comes to extreme vocals, there's definitely an element of finding your voice. Like, you kind of have to find what works for you. Some people can do the really deep growls. Some people can do the screams. Some people can do the shouts. There's some people are fucking miracle workers, and they seem to be able to do all three extremely well.
Yeah.
In my limited experience, I can do screams. I can do growls. The shouts, I'm less good at. And the growls, frankly, as I get older, I'm terrible at. So the screams are really all that works now. So, but yeah, how did yours? Because you have a very distinct voice as well. You know, how did that
Thanks.
evolve?
It took some time because on the last two EPs, the vocals were more like traditional, like super low and guttural, and I was trying to sound like a demon. And then when these songs were made, we were like brainstorming, and we came to the conclusion that if I sung them in the same way I had sung before, it wouldn't do them justice. And the idea was to pronounce and enunciate all the words so that you could understand what we were singing, even though you didn't have the lyrics or you weren't that familiar with the style. And then came studio, and I was super nervous about trying the higher register because during shows I had already done it. I do the black metal shrieks and the higher shouting and stuff. But when we came to the studio and I recorded like a couple of songs with the old style and sent them to guys, what do you think? And then nobody really answered anything. And Sebastian was like, you can do better. That's not what I want for the album. And I was like, then you can sing it.
Yeah,
but then I let it stew for a couple of hours, and I was like, fuck it, I'll do it. I'll do it. We performed at the Helsinki Death Fest in 2020, and next day, with 4 hours of sleep, we came to the studio and just hammered out a couple of songs with the new style, and I just found the voice then. And after that I've grown more accustomed to it and found new sounds I can do with my throat, and I think the next album is going to be more varied with the vocals.
In what sense would you consider starting to do some clean vocals, or what's your plan?
Not clean vocals. Our bassist will kick me out of band if I sing clean vocals on the album, but it's gonna be more. It's gonna be more varied. There's gonna be lower lows and higher highs, and something in between.
Yeah, more diverse.
Yeah.
Who are if you had the top 5 favorite death metal vocalists, who would you throw out as the 5 that instantly come to mind?
Steve Tucker, David Vincent, Carl Sanders, Nergal, and John Tardy.
Nice one.
I'd say that's a good selection. I'm very surprised not to hear Glenn Benton on there.
I think Glenn is great, but those 5 are I rank them. Yeah.
I do want to say, if someone asks you like a list like that, it's always, it should be the ones that come to mind immediately, because
it changes every time you ask.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But Glenn, to me, I mean, first 2 Deicide records, his vocals were fucking unreal. I mean, it was such, it was so angry and like so emotive and just, but so well paced and enunciated and stuff like that. It's just absolutely sensational. But I'm not surprised you brought up Steve Tucker and David Vincent either. So here's the next question: Steve Tucker versus
Steve
David
Tucker.
Vincent.
Steve Tucker.
Yeah. All right. And favorite Morbid Angel album?
Foremost Fatal to Flesh.
Domination.
Good choice. Yeah, I would have said Domination until Formulas Fatal to the Flesh came out.
Yeah.
And then it was Formulas Fatal to the Flesh.
Yeah.
Although, interestingly, my favorite song on that album is not a Steve Tucker song. It's that invocation of the continual one at the end.
Yeah.
That's my that's my
Perfect.
jam. And I do sometimes wish that Trey would do some more stuff like that. Like I actually quite liked the last Morbid Angel record, even though a lot of people that I know didn't.
I think
But,
Kingdoms Disdain is a great album.
Yeah, there's some fucking cool tunes on
Yeah.
there. Like really, really cool songs. I do miss some of the more like esoteric stuff from Formulas Fatal to the Flesh. The thing that I loved about that record, I think, is that it just sounded so completely different to anything else.
Yeah, it's almost off-putting because it's so
Yeah,
strange
that's
and
true.
so violent.
That's the thing. It's strange. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
And you
I
have these
think
weird
Heretic has
sequences
it.
like. Sorry, like to him to a gas giant, just a minute and 43 seconds of like weird guitar fucking around, but it works so unbelievably well.
Yeah. It's just Trey with his amps fucking around in the studio, finding out cool stuff.
In between playing Doom, but sorry, Sebastian, I interrupted you when you were talking about Heretic.
Yeah, I think it has the same effect. It's like it's so extreme.
Yeah, so
in every way.
So
like,
out there.
I love it.
I would. I assume that you guys are both massive fans of what is that pile of shit record that they brought out when David came back? Illud Divinum Insanus.
I really liked the album.
Really?
Yeah. I think Radical is a really cool song.
It's just messing around.
Well, okay. I'll make a confession that probably will. It'll make yours seem less shameful. And that is my favorite song off of Illud Divinum Insanus was the Combi Christ remix of Destructos versus the Earth.
It's really cool song and beauty.
The Combi Christ remix is fucking excellent.
Yeah,
it's not Morbid Angel, but
it's a cool song.
it is. I mean, there were moments on that album that definitely had a. There was like a good vibe, like Blades for Baal, for example. I thought was quite cool.
10 More Dead.
Nevermore is a good song.
Yeah, Nevermore I think is decent, but yes, there's some shit on there as well though. Too Extreme being one of them.
But Too Extreme is terrible song.
Yeah,
off-putting in the wrong way.
Yeah. We saw them in Tuska 2008. It was the reunion tour with David Vincent, and they played Nevermore, and this is actually a good song.
Yeah,
and they played only stuff from for the first albums, which was a disappointment. But you take what you can get.
Yeah.
It's a big shame. I know they do it more now that Steve is back in the band, but it was a shame that I don't think they ever really played songs off of Formulas Fatal to the Flesh when David was in the band.
Yeah, I think it was just the first four. Yeah,
and you saw Pete Sandoval is back in I Am Morbid now.
Yeah,
declaring that they're gonna be killing some asses for I Am Morbid. I did think that was fucking funny. We're gonna be killing some asses. Carl Sanders definitely with you. Nurgle, as I said, I like him. I you have to respect his ability, but as a man, he puts me off a bit. And again, another one I'm surprised not to hear is John Gallagher. I mean, because that dude that's pure menace.
Hey, if you ask me the question now, there would be five
now
different.
It's John
John Gallagher and what's the guy from Cattle Decapitation?
Travis.
Yeah, Travis. Yeah, and then of course Jason from Misery Index, and there are too many great vocalists. Yeah. To think about.
What I was amazed about Cattle Decapitation, I was blown away by the fact that Travis could pull off that singing live.
Yeah,
it's like when he's like vocaling that low and then being able to do that weird nasally singing. And firstly, I thought he did it with effects when I heard it on the record, and it's like, no, that's just he can actually sing like that. But to do it the way that he does, and he doesn't seem to. I mean, you can hear it's different from the record when you hear them play live. But he definitely doesn't seem to lose a step when he's doing it. It's not like it's lacking any power. You know, like sometimes when somebody sings live, it's like the balls have gone away, and it's obviously because they don't have the benefit of studio trickery and a bit of fucking tea with lemon and honey before he records that vocal line. God only knows how much of that support Burton Bell has in the studio when he does clean vocals, or at least when he used to. But yeah, Travis was a totally different kettle of fish. I mean, the impact of what he does on the record is definitely still there when he plays live as well.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that I hate for being so talented. It's just
unfair. It's unfair.
how can one dude be so talented?
As we were talking about Morbid Angel, one of the things that I could see, and I'm curious to get your take on whether I'm correct, I could definitely see reading some of the lyrics on Ashblind. There is definitely a big Morbid Angel influence here, especially like the vibes I get, and it's not a bad thing, but the vibes I get is from Gateways to Annihilation. That era of Morbid Angel, there's for sure an influence in the writing, and like I said, it's not bad because, and I know it's not bad because when I've written lyrics in the past, there's a very significant influence from that album, from that era of Morbid Angel as well. Hence why I could spot it.
Okay, I myself, I can't really see the similarities, but if you can, then cool. Because
not similarities, but an influence of the writing style. A lot of person and first person projecting an element of violence, like the whatever you're talking about. It's not spoken of in a very abstract way. It's very personalized and very direct.
Yeah, I think that could be that might be true because I think it's just subconscious. It just keeps on pushing from there because I remember reading those lyrics when I was in high school and I was like, "Whoa, this is so great."
I'd say I thought it was the best thing ever. Like when I heard, I think when I read Summoning Redemption's lyrics, I was like, "Fuck! How do you come up with something that's genius?" How did the metal journey begin for the both of you? What did you kind of first get into? What was the gateway into heavier stuff?
Well, the first heavy band I listened to was Metallica, but then my cousin asked me if I had heard Slayer, which I hadn't, and then my ass was kind of blown off when I heard Angel Death for the first time. And then I met this kid in my high school. He had a Cradle of Filth shirt. It's like, you want to hear some really heavy shit? Like, yeah. And then I started listening to Dimmu Borgir and Cradle of Filth, and eventually I found Nile, and that was it. That's where where I fell into the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
where the downward spiral began. And Sebastian, for you,
there was like always playing music in my house when I was a kid. So my first like fan moment was to borrow my mom's Alice Cooper record, and then I discovered Kiss because my father used to be a great Kiss fan, and then he showed me Metallica and Anthrax and this thrash metal stuff, and I stuck with it like for 10 years, like thrash metal and death thrash metal. But then I found like Cannibal Corpse and Nile, and then I think the first which really blew me away was Decapitated when I first heard Spheres of Madness song, and I was like, what is this? Then I found Meshuggah and stuff like that. So the rabbit hole was ready. But I think the most important like moment for me was to discover Ulcerate and the like Destroyers of All. It might be the best album of all time when speaking about extreme metal.
Oh, really?
It just sounds like death and dying, and everything's like vanished and blown away.
Yeah.
Like the music like paints you this. What would you say?
A picture of a bleak and uncaring world.
I would definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
You have brought back memories now, though, of a couple of different things. So one was hearing Smashing the Ante by Nile. Like, I remember hearing that. Going, this is unhinged. Like, this is just completely and utterly unhinged. And then the other was seeing Decapitated when they still had Sauron in the band. And he was just such a presence on stage. But I remember them doing what was the song called? It was on the Negation. I think it was called it was called Three-Dimensional Defect.
Yeah.
And he had this move where he would stand on stage where he would never headbang because he was quite a muscled up guy. Like never headbang. He just like punches his fists like this, like in between doing vocal lines. But yeah, man, such a fucking badass on stage. It was a real. I don't mind their vocalists that they have now, but that dude to me, like, it's a bit like what was that guy who used to be Nile?
Dallas.
Used to be there.
Taller Wade.
No, not Dallas. Who was their vocalist on Amongst the Catacombs of Nephron-Car?
I can't remember.
Chief Spires.
Yeah, Chief Spires.
I remember seeing him live with the band as well, and it was the same deal. He had like his bass on a chain. The guy's like ripped. He looks like the Liver King, and he's like got this like fucking inhuman stage presence. He's just like, because they have that like the Egyptian music playing in between songs. So when he's like screaming at the audience, it's like you literally feel like you're in the middle of a fucking battle.
It's violence made flesh.
Awesome. Yeah, no, massively so. Dallas was great too, but he was very different. Like I remember the first time I saw them with Dallas, I didn't enjoy it very much, and then I kind of had to reacclimatize myself to what to expect from a Nile show, just because Chief Spires was such a presence on stage. But Dallas was, I mean, as a vocalist and definitely as a guitarist, just astounding.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I used to play guitar in a band and sing, but I just play for fun nowadays. I just can't understand how people can play so difficult songs and sing at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just
No, fuck me neither. You look at like even going back to Death, like you watch Chuck play. I mean, the stuff that those riffs are ridiculously difficult. Not to mention stuff like the leads and things like that. And then to be doing vocals while you're doing that, I can't do it. It's just I think it's part of what I admire so much. I always generally tend to admire people that do stuff that I don't believe I would be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no better example of that playing and singing Death songs. So now, what are the kind of immediate plans for you guys? You spoke about doing another album at some point. Is that something that you guys are already actively working on? What would the next 12 months hold for you guys?
well, we have about 9 or 10 songs ready at the moment. We're going to hit the studio in late April and record drums there and some bass and guitar, and then we're gonna just take it easy in summer.
Oh wow! So not fucking around at all as far as
we have the 9 or 10 songs ready. We could play them live any day.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we have 6 or 7 songs
For the
future.
third album.
So you guys listened to the Veilburner interview that I did, and you heard, well, they're doing an album like they're like 2-3 albums in advance of a cycle.
Yeah.
So, we're going to see if we can catch up to them. That is fucking cool though.
Yeah,
and
Sebastian. Yeah. Sorry.
I was going to say, in terms of the sound, the direction of the next record.
I think it's more like in your face.
Yeah.
In the same way that Ashblind, it has the same elements of atmospheric and emotions, but I think they're more straightforward than before.
Yeah.
And the music is like maybe more simple.
You could say that for you.
Yeah.
But, some of the riffs they're more rock, so to say, but they're still there. It's death metal, 100%, with added elements from other stuff we listen to and we like to do. It's
That's also the thing. I'm a big fan of simplicity when it's used right. Like I don't know whether you guys heard the new Darvaza record.
No.
There's a song on it called, I can't remember the song name off the top of my head, but as an example, right? So they have this breakdown where it's literally just like one like chord on the guitar and he just lets it ring, and the guy's like shouting and screaming over it.
Yeah.
But it's that simplicity. Like when you do it right, it's so fucking cool. It has so much impact. And you mentioned Kiss earlier. So my friend Mike Hill, he was talking on his podcast about like old Kiss records and stuff like that, and it got me like back into listening to some of that older stuff. And the one thing that those older bands did very, very well, that I feel sometimes in our more technical age is something of a lost art, is they know exactly when to just play a single note and just let it ring and just kind of let it breathe in the riff, and it still has like such a just weighty impact. Maybe it's not it's not meant to be the most evil sounding shit, but I'm trying to think of think of Night Stalker by AC/DC. You kind of have that like the way that it just rings at the end. It has a real sinister feel to it, and it's from nothing other than that perfect timing of knowing when to make it a bit more complex and knowing when to dial it back. And I kind of get the same with drummers sometimes as well. Like sometimes a drummer that does something super simple is almost cooler than somebody who is playing like Jamie from Ulcerate 24/7 or Kason Westmoreland or someone like that.
Yeah, one of the best things in drumming is just Lars Ulrich on Black Album.
Yeah,
pure simplicity. It's just the beat is so strong.
Yeah, and the feels are all like memorable. Like
yeah,
yeah. You always know when it comes.
Everything. I think that everything you do as a musician should in the end serve the song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and one of the best sounds in the world is just hitting the low B string, with boom, and it resonates and goes off key for a moment.
That was without a doubt. You made an excellent point there, because that was without a doubt, I think, where for a period of time death metal went wrong. The technicality became the focal point rather than the technicality being deployed in service of the song. I feel like Nile, to a degree, with the guys to really kind of whip that back into line, because they started to, their songs became much more self-contained on successive records. Especially in their Darkened Shrines. Annihilation of the Wicked, I think, was a real step up in that regard. Like every song was sounded self-contained. It kind of took you back to the vibe that you got from a record like Master of Puppets, where every song is distinct and memorable and things like that. And then I remember when Annihilation of the Wicked came out, you could start to see other bands follow suit. So Hate Eternal went from those first couple of records being great, but being albums that take you by the back of the hair and just smash you on the table for 45 minutes or however long it is, to the songs started to feel a bit more song orientated. That to me was one of the big first great positive steps in getting death metal back on track. Because again, you go back to the old time masters, the old favorites. A record like Legion, or a record like Blessed Are the Sick, there's very distinct, extremely memorable songs on those albums that you remember, even if you haven't listened to the album for 10 years, you can still remember those songs.
Yeah, for sure.
By hearing the first, second,
100%.
Yeah, Blessed Are the Sick is my second favorite from Morbid Angel, and it's just pure insanity, and I love the way it's like so slow when it needs to be slow and fast when it needs to be fast. But everything serves a purpose on the album.
Yeah. Well, that's also a record that again shows how great just a well-timed vocal line can be, or like even a well-timed effect on vocals, like on Holy Blasphemy. The line, the Yog Sothoth evil one.
Yeah,
he's got this like weird sort of effect that comes in when he does and it just it sounds so fucking cool. It's like I was talking about another band the other day, and I call it the reverse echo. It's like little things like that just take the song from being 8 out of 10 to being fucking 80 out of 10.
Yeah, they elevate the songs for sure. Yeah.
Gentlemen, well, it was an absolute pleasure catching up with you. I just want to say again, massively impressed with Ash Blind. I'm very much looking forward to whatever it is you guys do next. And you always have an open invitation anytime you want to come on into the Necrosphere.
Thank you.
24 out of 30 in a very, very competitive year. So let's see what the next album can do.
We're very happy for you including us there.
Yeah, thank you for the shout out.
Man. I as I said, I've been massively impressed by the record ever since I've got it, and I've pushed it on the show ever since I've gotten it as well. So I think there might be an episode, a couple of episodes back, where I did a proper review of the album too. But I was hugely impressed. So, but great catching up with you, and hope we'll speak again soon.
Yeah,
you
thanks
too,
for
man.
having us.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, guys, take care.
Bye bye.
Yeah,
you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Worldbreaker is the name of the song. The band, of course, Devenial Verdict. Big thank you to Riku and Sebastian for coming on the podcast. Great to finally talk to these guys. And if you have not yet been thoroughly convinced to check them out, I am confident that that song has pulled you across the line. The album, of course, is Ashblind, and it is available on Transcending Obscurity Records. As always, I will post the link for Devenial Verdict's Bandcamp in the description of the podcast, so head over there. Buy yourself some music and some merch and let them know where you heard them for the first time. And by the way, thank you very much to everybody who keeps shouting out the podcast as the inspiration for music purchases, merch purchases, and whatever else. It really, really helps. I set myself 2 goals last year. Goal number 1 was to get to a point where I didn't have to fish for guests anymore. And I think I'm just about there now. There's no more, spending Sunday sending a load of emails out, hoping somebody will bite. That is largely thanks to all of you. And goal number 2 was to be able to meaningfully move the needle for bands that I like and bands in the underground. And I hope that I am achieving that as well. So, Devenial Verdict, certainly a band that I'm a massive fan of. Number 24 on my top 30 of 2022, above the likes of Power from Hell, Destroyer 666, all great records, great releases, but Devenial Verdict was just something absolutely extraordinary. Okay, my friends, right now, if you believe that the Disney Corporation isn't quite woke enough, then I suggest you get to step in, because this is my weekly news rant. Let's start with Anarkhon, a band on Deborah Morty Productions. Their last record came out in 2020, reviewed, I think, on the first ever episode to feature Nathan and Chris from Gravier. And I do remember really liking that record. It was, pretty vintage, old-school death metal that had kind of a slight waft of black metal going through it, but it was very much in the incantation vein, and I thought it was excellent. But it says here, brutal death metal operatives from Brazil, Anarkhon, have launched a second preview tune from their upcoming 5th studio album, Obiasot Dwibat Pnuten. And I'm past giving a fuck about mispronouncing these goddamn weirdo-ass album titles and band names. I can, however, get the pronunciation of the song title correct. It says, the track, Levitating Among Unspeakable Cosmic Anomalies, can be listened to via the YouTube Down Under. As I said, really like the last track, or last record that these guys released, so I have high hopes for the new one. Let's give it a listen. That sounds fucking fantastic so far. It says here, composer Sodomic narrates, this new album features some brutal and more direct parts, as well as slow and psychedelic songs. So the listener will experience a roller coaster of emotions and feelings on this long player. It's important to keep in mind that we always were and always will be a death metal band. Brutal songs with blast beats are a part of our identity and will always be present in our work. That's clearly not a blueprint they have strayed away from. But I would say it feels a little bit more sophisticated to me this time round than did the previous record. And the previous record, like I said, I really enjoyed. But this to me feels like a step up, without a shadow of a doubt. The song title references H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos, working in tandem with the music to evoke horrific and fearsome visions within the listener's eye. The risk of being cast into the gnawing mouth of cosmic horror is all-pervasive. Sodomic notes. I never think about the title of a song in advance. I always write the lyrics first. Then, after reading what I wrote and feeling the words and their meanings, I finally come up with a fitting name. Interestingly, the first thing I thought about when I was when that song was playing, and we'll hear if that's the case as it continues, was that this reminds me a little bit of the previous Anarkhon record with a bit of a touch of the last Bloodhouse North. It has that real kind of, being sucked into the vortex of, some sort of devilish cosmic fucking abyss. It definitely has that feel to it. But 1 minute and 1 second in, and this is seriously good. And by the way, there's exactly what I mean by that Bloodhouse North influence. That riff is this weird kind of like dive bomb into hell, and then you've got the sort of chug. It's like dun 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 dun. Fucking brilliant, absolutely fucking brilliant. Also, one thing to say, very often those kinds of vocals, the sort of just deep guttural growl that kind of permeates through the music rather than punctuates parts. And you guys know what I mean. It's like you have that Glenn Benton on Old Deerside or Sam Bean on Werewolf style vocal where the vocal is almost like it almost has the same utility as the rapping on like old school hip hop, where it's part of the hook. The vocal is just more it almost feels like it's there to create a very ominous feeling, and on this particular song it works so well. They had that again on the previous record. This isn't a massive move away sonically from the previous stuff. There's just that X ingredient that's been added in, and it really, really works. So fucking kudos to the men from Anarkhon. I would definitely say Deborah Morty is due for a pretty big year. I think it was 2020, where they had 2020 or 2021, where they had definitely 2020. Sorry, I keep on stammering here like a fool, but where they had, I think, 4 of my 5 favorite records of the year, and those bands should all be due for something new this year. So Ecclese, Aversio Humanitatis, Selpst, looking forward to big things from them. They are also extremely good at finding interesting shit to sign. So anyway, let us move on. I see Oak have put out their album. We listened to that Oak, it now turns out video, because it's actually just one song on the record. And I wasn't massively impressed, I have to say. Violence have parted ways with their drummer Perry Strickland. Grand Cadaver unleash Serrated Jaws single. Don't really know much about Grand Cadaver. It says here, Grand Cadaver is a death metal formation featuring experienced Swedish musicians, and they reveal their Serrated Jaws single. It's the first taste of their sophomore record, which is planned to be released later this year through Majestic Mountain Records. Additional details coming soon. The new album was recorded by Per Stolberg, Kalle Lijar, and Daniel Dollars Dural at Welfare Studios, Gothenburg. Let us give this a quick spin.
Stillness,
that part that's just been that like little melodic break, inspired. I was on the verge of writing this off, and then that part comes in, and all of a sudden, the whole entire song just is completely elevated. Really, really, really cool. I like that very much. Let's get back to it. Many thumbs up. That is fucking excellent. I just saw in the corner of my eye a review for Sanguisugabog, their new record, Homicidal Ecstasy. People are fucking swelling themselves about this. And I definitely agree. It's a fantastic record. I mean, in terms of heaviness, it is brutal as all get out. That single that they released off of it, Pissed, is, I mean, it's one of the hardest songs ever. And if you are a person who likes lifting, that has been the lifting soundtrack to most of my sessions over the course of the last week. Really, really cool. But I have to say, though, like my preference death metal wise, with the exception maybe of a band like Dying Fetus, is always towards stuff like Anarkhon or Grand Cadaver. Just something it's death metal, it has all the aggression and stuff, but it's got that extra something else to it, you know, that extra little bit of darkness. But yeah, speaking of death metal, so the 666 countdown, that is going to have to get put in the diary to happen at some point. I know both the mics are super keen on it. I am racking my brains on what I am on who I leave in and who I include, though. And I say who, we're talking albums now, because honestly, you know, if you're talking about 90s death metal, there are bands that you could probably have 2, 3, maybe even 4 of their records in that list. So it's going to be very, very difficult. There was also a whole lot of things happening across a variety of distant lands, and I feel like any time I kind of decide on a proper on a list of 6 that I'm comfortable with, then somebody mentions something else. You know, I have my list, or I had my list more or less done in my mind the other day, and then Ralph Schmidt pointed out Pestilence, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh fuck. Now I have to go back and listen to Testimony of the Ancients and Spheres at least. But yeah, very much looking forward to doing that episode. But like I said, though, Scandado is going to be made to stand tall before the man and give an account of which albums he did not like on my top 30. He is a fucking brilliant guy, though. One of the nicest guys I've met in a very long time. It was so much fun having him on for the Black Metal Countdown. And I've said it before, but I really do love Necromaniacs. Okay, No Return have lost their bassist. I've never heard of No Return before, but apparently they've been active since 1984. Their bassist, Laurent Jonault, has passed away. It doesn't say what the cause is. I guess it's almost irrelevant. I just would want to echo what has been written here. Our sincere condolences to your family and loved ones, Jonault. Like I said last week, a lot of people passing away seemingly way too young, in my opinion. Unfelled have unleashed another single. Now, I think we listened to an Unfelled track probably about 3 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. Pagan black metal project Unfelled will be releasing its debut full-length Pal of Endless Perdition on March the 10th, 2023 via Season of Mist Underground Activists. The band are now sharing a lyric video for the newest single, Veil of Perdition. The last single I really liked. Let's see if I feel the same about this one. so far, I feel like if Drudkh and Hate Forest had a love child or had a three-way menage a trois with Battles in the North era Immortal, and they were somehow able to spawn some sort of super cult black metal demon, then this is the music that that particular demon would be recording. There's definitely like a hint of Battles in the North on here, but I know that Unfelled, I believe, I may stand corrected because there's nothing about it on the press release, but I do believe that it does feature members of Drudkh. So anyway, I do like what I hear so far, though, but it is the vocals, as always, that could potentially make or break it. So let's hear what happens in the next minute. That earns a top notch, in my opinion. Vocals are on point, riff is on point, the grimness is on point. I like that very, very much. Yeah, very much looking forward to hearing the rest of that. Okay, we move on. And next up on the list, Voivod announced 40th anniversary US shows. That makes me feel very old. Even though Voivod was slightly before my time, there is that point now where a lot of bands are starting to catch up. And, it's like all these. I spoke last week about all these folks we see retiring, and actors that we grew up with passing away. I don't like when I see shit like this. 40th anniversary. It makes me. Am I getting depressed about getting older? Not really, but I'm sometimes reminded of the fact that, technically speaking, it's supposed to be something like 22 years until I retire. And 22 years sounds like a long time, but in the grand scheme of things, it is not. Okay, we listened to a track off the new Ulthar last week. I see they've posted another 5-minute section of a track off of the new record, because apparently there's a 20-minute track on the new album. But I'm not going to bother checking that out because we've already listened to it, and we already like it. We're on a bit of a roll today, though. Some fucking fantastic things so far. Omega Infinity have posted a new track. You all know that I'm a big fan of this band. Omega Infinity, the project of Zen of Ne Obliviscaris and Tentacle P of Todgelichter, are now releasing their third single, Death Rays, from the upcoming album The Anticurrent. The latter drops down on this planet via Season of Mist on the 24th of February. I've already spoken to Tentacle, and I did mention to him that they definitely need to come back on the podcast. He's down with it, so we'll do something in the next couple of weeks. But I am super curious to hear what this sounds like, because I've not heard it yet, and I was thoroughly blown away by that last single that we listened to a couple of weeks ago. So let's give this one a spin. One of the things I really like about Omega Infinity, and particularly these new songs that I've heard so far, it's like they've gone out of their way to do something that sounds distinct and unique. There's a lot of black metal bands that have brought the sci-fi element into their sound. Some of it has worked, some of it has sounded fucking stupid. And I think that these guys really, really hit the balance of not sacrificing a great song because you want to focus on style, you want a certain element to be present in the music. You know, at its core, it is absolutely black metal. But it's definitely future black metal. It's futuristic black metal in the truest sense of the word. And it is not a future where, you know, it's fucking Star Wars and there's nothing beautiful about the future as their music paints it in my mind's eye. It is a dark, grim place where most likely we no longer exist. But yeah, I like it very much. And I am going to give it another 60 seconds.
I show you the beauty of the searing light as your worlds crumble to dust. I show you the beauty of the searing.
Zen, incidentally, is still a phenomenal vocalist who blows me away every single time I hear what he's doing. A very talented Australian, I should say. And speaking of talented Australians, I have spoken to the man they call Sam Bean and told him that it is high time he be basking in the afterglow of Antichrist Imperium being crowned the #1 band of 2022 by yours truly. So we do have a date in the diary to record the third installment in the record-setting podcast episodes we've done so far. First episode was the longest I had done to date up until that point. The only guy I think that has topped us now, the only guest, has been Swartolf. And I'll definitely have another episode with Swartolf, hopefully sooner rather than later. I need to reach out to him and try and get that set up. But yeah, look out for Sam Bean coming on the show again at some point soon. But yeah, I will definitely get Zen and Tentacle on also. That what I've heard so far there sounds fantastic. Carnifex upcoming album's writing session in final stage. It says here next week, February the 15th, the Californian deathcore collective will hit the studio with producer Jason Sukov to start tracking down new tunes. Am I mistaken, or did Mick from Anal Nathrak produce one of the Carnifex records? I might be wrong about that. I have seen now that Mick is no longer going to be playing live with Anal Nathrak. So, as I understand it, it's going to be essentially the Anal Nathrak Road band, which will be Sam Loynes. David Gray is going to be in there, and I don't know who else. And then obviously you'll have Dave Hunt doing the vocals. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. I think if someone in a band no longer wants to play live, and the rest of the band want to play shows, and the fans, have an appetite to see the band play live, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with, having a live band and somebody who's creating music in the studio, and have that person come out once in a while, maybe to do a couple of, songs on stage, whatever their appetite is. I have seen online that Mick has found himself or met himself a rather fetching young lady. So I can understand why he will not want to be away from home for too long with her waiting in the wings. Okay, Ninkarsag to headline the Dread March through Scandinavia. Black metal formation from the United Kingdom, Ninkarsag announced a set of headlining shows for the Dread March through Scandinavia, scheduled in the end of April, beginning of May. The 8-date trek will feature support from the UK's Ante Inferno and Denmark's Glemcell. That last Anti-Inferno record was very good. Glemcell, I don't know. But what I have heard so far by Ninkarsag, I have really, really liked as well. So if you are in Sweden, Denmark, Norway, at any of the venues on this list, the Abyss is one of them in Gothenburg, Verket in Sweden is another, then go check them out. Support some bands from old Blighty, because quite honestly, I'm not so sure there's a whole lot else worth supporting in this country anymore. Okay, what else is going on? I see that Wolves in the Throne Room are coming to Europe. Now, speaking of, I mentioned this a few minutes ago, talking about hunting for guests, I reached out to the Wolves of the Throne Room guys, and I was given the cold shoulder. But probably maybe that's karma coming to bite me because of all the times I've given Slipknot's music the cold shoulder. So, I mentioned that because the headline here reads, Slipknot launch new standalone single. Slipknot have premiered a brand new standalone single called Bone Church. The accompanying video clip was directed by Sean Clown Crahan. Says Sean of the song, on the road we have a jam room set up backstage at every show where we play, practice, warm up, and sometimes try out new ideas. Bone Church started life in a jam room on the 0.5 The Grey Chapter tour. We've been bringing it closer and closer to life ever since, and finally here it is. This one is for the fans. Don't they call the fans the maggots? A further vision deeper into Slipknot's history, which is still being written. Enjoy. There's always these rumors of every Slipknot album being their last. I mean, I still think they stink, but I am now curious to hear what the song sounds like, so I'm going to give it a listen. I actually don't mind the album cover to this either. It looks a little bit like the Joker's face paint put on a like one of those minstrel masks, but yeah, it doesn't look bad. Anyway, let's hear what Bone Church sounds like. I've got an even better idea. Let's skip ahead by 60 seconds, so I don't have to hear those that ambient belching for much longer. You're probably getting the impression already, as I certainly feel in my heart my expectations are low, but who knows? Will 2023 be the year that Slipknot win me back round, and I once again, not actually once again because I never have, but I finally decide to throw in my lot with the rest of the maggots? I don't think so, but stranger things have happened. Jesus Christ. Okay. Let's give it another 60 seconds. We're now at the 2-minute mark, and we hope that the song has finally started to go somewhere.
My hands wrapped around the sun, raise my walls, but the damage is done. I see bugs from the corner of my eyes, just a shadow, a figment, another empty lie.
Shite. That's what that is. Shite and fake shit. I should have known better, but I also don't just want to cherry pick stuff I know I'm going to like, because that'll just make the segment a bit too predictable and too boring. So I figured I should at least give that a quick listen. Okay, Enisim have detailed their 7th full length. I've never heard of this band before, but apparently they are Arpentanian black metal bringers. They've also made the critical mistake of posting their song on Bandcamp only, and I'm not going to listen to that because I am a caring man and I don't want to destroy any of your eardrums and or car windows. So we move on. Dying Fetus Unleash Unbridled Fury single. Now, talking of cherry picking something, the odds of me not liking a Dying Fetus song is extraordinarily low. Like, it is as low as Kamala Harris's IQ. So I I go into this one with my expectations the exact opposite as it was with Slipknot, Slip Poo. And I think, yeah, it says Death Metal Legends Dying Fetus are back with new music, a brand new standalone single called Unbridled Fury. The accompanying music video was directed by Eric Richter. They may as well just have added it fucking rips, because I think that it will. So let's hit it. Fan-fucking-tastic. Brilliant, as I said. I mean, I would have been amazed if they turned in something that was even halfway mediocre. There is no such thing as a shit record in their entire discography. They're one of those rare bands. They breathe that rare air where even on their worst day, they are still better than 90% of bands out there right now. I notice from watching the video that it seems like John Gallagher has not necessarily gone back to the shaved head, but he's at least he's straightened up. He straightened up his appearance. So just a side note. And every year I kind of have these wish lists of folks that I want to get on. Last year it was Sakis. I didn't think I would get him on, but if anybody asked me, it would have been Greg McIntosh. I had Shane Embry on as well. This year, I would love more than anything to get on John Gallagher of Dying Fetus. So if anybody knows how I can get in touch with him because he's not on social media, then hook a brother up. I would also love to get Attila on. I would love to get somebody from Marduk. I think we've got a potential chance for that when the new record comes out. And who else? Let me know who you guys would want me to get on the show. I mean, I have a bunch of people in the back of my mind. I actually have a bunch of people already pipelined. And frankly, if I wanted to, I could probably have a lineup, running all the way through to the end of March. But, I also don't just want to get people on and repeat. But let me know who do you guys want me on or want me to have on this year. But John Gallagher would most definitely be one of them. Let's skip to the 3-minute mark of the song, and let's just give a quick listen to the final beats of this tune. Like I said, so far it's fucking fantastic. It's just Dying Fetus being Dying Fetus, which is basically death metal perfection. Hard as fucking nails. Great name for a song. And as I said, when it comes to this style of death metal, there is not a single band on the face of the earth that comes anywhere close. Not one. If anybody has views contrary to that, you are wrong for having that opinion. Okay, let's see what else there is for us to check out. Unfelled have put out a new song, but I think we spoke about that last week. So I think we've come a roundabout way to where we left off last week, which means it's time for us to head over to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music, Blabbermouth. And let's see if there's anything here worth looking at, or at the very least worth laughing about. Bush's Gavin Rosdale says he has secured a home for his cooking show. Now it's the last piece of the financing. why on earth would you give a shit about a fucking cooking show on TV when there are so many great cooking channels on YouTube? And I watch many of them. If anybody watches this on YouTube, you'll no doubt see the smorgasbord of stuff in my recommendations list. It's usually a combination of cars, hi-fi, geopolitics, video games, and cooking. And I would say probably best 3 cooking channels. For barbecue, how to barbecue right, nothing beats it. For just general good food, done well, and also super entertaining in its presentation, Sam the Cooking Guy is awesome. And then for top-notch Italian food, Sip and Feast is fantastic. So don't bother supporting Gavin Rosdale, because he's also a sniveling little weasel who was crying on I think it was the HBO documentary about Woodstock 99 about Limp Bizkit. So, next headline: the genius of Devin Townsend meets the world of sci-fi in new Ziltoid the Omniscient comic series. I thought that Ziltoid the Omniscient record was terrible. It was one of the first things that truly hurt my heart as far as the connection I used to feel to Devin Townsend's music. And of course, since then, he's stamped on that love and affection I had for his music many times over. But I don't give 2 fucks about Ziltoid the Omniscient. Creator and Lamb of God release collaborative song State of Unrest. Could this be where they salvage the reputations they both left in tatters with the fucking trash they put out in 2022? Lamb of God and Creator have collaborated on a new original song, State of Unrest. The track is being released today, Friday, February the 10th, to promote the 2 groups' European tour of the same name. When the initial State of Unrest tour was postponed and blah, 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 let's move on, says Lamb of God, it's been a long time coming, and now that the State of Unrest tour is about to kick off, I think it's worthy of a celebration. Hate Uber Alice was the name of the Creator record that came out last year. That was total and utter shit. I can't even remember the name of the Lamb of God album. Oh, Omens, it says here. But, the only true omen that it was of is the band's creative decline. But anyway, I'm willing to believe that State of Unrest might not be too bad, though. So let's give it a quick listen. So they basically found a way to combine the most boring aspects of their last 2 records into one uber boring song. And they shouldn't have called it State of Unrest. They should have called it Omens of fucking bullshit Uber Alice. Terrible. Thumbs down. Not even lowest notch. Yeah, I've got a lot of love for Old Creator, and I've got a massive amount of love for everything that Lamb of God did musically up into the album that came out prior to Omens. But I think it definitely feels to me like on current form, the best days of both of those bands are well and truly behind them. Anyway, let's move on. The Rolling Stones Chronicles mini documentary series is finally launched. That might be quite interesting, actually. I know many of you might not be fans of Rolling Stones, even though I can tell from the YouTube demographics, the average age of folks that listen to this podcast is between 35 and 50. So, we're all of the age where our parents grew up listening to the Strolling Bones. And at the very least, we've got some degree of affinity for, some of that older music. But, I think that'll be interesting. Zakk Wylde will be selling stage-played guitars on Pantera Tour at VIP meet and greets. I wonder what they're going to be going for. It says here, Zakk Wylde will be selling his stage-played electric guitars on Pantera's upcoming US tour as part of the deluxe stage-played VIP upgrade package, which is available via SoundDrink. Fans can have their photos taken with Zakk, get their guitar signed, and chat with the longtime Ozzy Osbourne guitarist and Black Label Society frontman. I was just about to say, I wonder what those packages would cost. It says here, the packages, which are currently listed at $3,250, include the Wild Audio Barbarian guitar in a choice of 3 finishes: Orange Buzzsaw, Genesis Bullseye, and Purple Blizzard. In a recent interview with Guitar World, Wylde talked about his approach to playing guitar leads originally performed by Pantera's founding Axeman. I think we've spoken about this before. He basically just says he sounds like Zakk, Dime sounded like Dime. I mean, I don't know who the fucking Mensa members are that would have thought that it would sound otherwise. But anyway, I also don't understand what the gripe is about Zakk being in this reunion or this Pantera reunion that I've seen from some folks. Like, people are like, oh, he doesn't do the music justice. I mean, who else, you fucking morons? I don't really think there's anybody who could completely replicate Dime's style, but I mean, the dude that could certainly come the closest is Zakk. I can't possibly see anybody else doing it. Arch enemies Alyssa White gluts on being vegan. Using animal products is completely unnecessary, not if those products include steak, ribs, and all the other good stuff that we get from animals. I'm definitely with anybody who's against testing on animals. I think that that animal testing really, in my view, should be replaced with testing the incarcerated, the lifetime incarcerated, particularly people that were responsible for rape and child molestation. But eating meat, I am very sorry. I will never, ever in my life stop doing that. I will move back to South Africa before I stop eating meat. In October 2022, Black Velvet magazine editor Shari Black Velvet. I can't hear the words Black Velvet, by the way, without thinking of Alana Miles' song Black Velvet. And if you are a gentleman who, at a younger age, let's say for argument's sake, he's mid-20s, frequented the Odd Gentleman's establishment, you will know that song played in the average gentleman's establishment probably at least 5 to 10 times per night. Anyway, the inspiring vocalist of Arch Enemy chatted via Zoom, telling Black Velvet what initially made her make the jump to veganism, what her thoughts are on vigils, and what makes a person cause pain and sorrow, and if she thinks there will ever be a time when all life is valued. That sounds like exactly the kind of conversation I would be particularly interested in. Asked what she thinks makes a person cause pain and sorrow to animals and whether it's down to a person's upbringing, Alyssa said, I think it is. If we want to look at this just from a general perspective, children are not raised. If you look at a baby around a bunny or around a cat or dog, if you just look at any baby when they see an animal, they're in awe, they're laughing, they're smiling, they think it's cool. I completely disagree with that. I have seen many kids who need to be taught respect when they're around animals. Kids that poke animals, prod at them, hit them, they don't know any better, and they need decent parents to provide them with the appropriate guidance and discipline. And sometimes, this is going to sound controversial. I'm not advocating a mauling or anything like this, but sometimes a little snap or a cat maybe giving them the paw when they step out of line, it's not a bad thing because it's not going to hurt them, not going to wound them in any great way. There's no permanent injury being done here. But it'll certainly teach them a degree of respect for animals, because I think one of the biggest mistakes that especially kids, but a great many adults also make when it comes to animals, is that they superimpose human emotion on the animal or human personalities on the animals, and they never quite recognize the fact that the animal is and always will be an animal and have a very different way of thinking and a very different way of reacting to human beings. But anyway, I was more curious here, though, to see what she was talking about or her vegan lifestyle. So anyway, she says here, 2 years earlier, White Glutz explained why being vegan is definitely metal, telling the Mercy for Animals Facebook page, so I've been vegan for over 20 years now. I was vegan before I started in music. I've never eaten meat in my life. I grew up in a completely vegetarian household, so going vegan was just like the next logical step. And when I started doing music, there was nothing I wanted to talk about more than animal rights. And so I was now using this heavy, passionate form of music to sort of convey a message that I wanted to. Being female, being vegan, and also being straight edge in the metal world is just a combination of targets on my forehead that make it really easy for me to get singled out or pushed around. I mean, the honest answer is no one should be singled out for being vegan, but likewise, no one who's vegan should be screaming at me when I go to something like Metopia in London. They always have a bunch of... So Metopia, for those of you that don't know, is this barbecue festival they do around September time in London. It's fucking awesome. Food's great. There's always a great vibe at the festival. But they always have a bunch of vegans standing outside protesting. They have these like they look like film props where they like barbecuing a dog over a grill. I mean, fucking stupid, insane shit. So I don't want any of that shit in my face either. If I want to eat the meat, I'll eat the meat. I'm all for eating free range only. I'm all for ethical farming. I'm not for ever removing beef from my diet, or pork, or lamb, or chicken. The rest of it you can have. Nothing. I don't need to eat a bunch of fucking exotic meats. I've had crocodile. I've had a lot of different deer. Deer is actually not bad. Springbok in particular is really nice. But crocodile not so much. I've had snake as well, and that's also not all that good. Dave Mustaine wants to collaborate with Body Count again, Ice-T says. Static X announces release date for Project Regeneration Volume 2, shares cover of Nine Inch Nails' Terrible Lie. I am curious to hear what that sounds like, because I like that song very much. And I love the first Static X album, but as I've said many times before. But most of what they did after that is hot garbage. Let us hear, though, what they make of Terrible Lie. They have mangled that fantastic track in such a way that it reminds me a little bit of those entitled, spoiled, whiny scumbags from Just Stop Oil that are running around and throwing tomato soup on beautiful, timeless paintings and works of art in museums all over London. I mean, that was literally like that song was literally like they took the Nine Inch Nails discography and took a huge steamy dump on it. Terrible. 2 thumbs down. David Ellefson and Jeff Young are hoping to bust out a new song called Bridges Burn on Kings of Thrash Tour. I mean, is that really what passes for news on Blabbermouth? We think we're going to play a new song tonight. Quick, post an article. And if ever somebody knows or has a lot of experience about busting out, it's old Dave Ellefson. He must have heard, by the way, the jokes that I made about his public masturbation, because he unfollowed me on Instagram, and my feelings were hurt. Anyway, Metallica's third Helping Hands concert and auction raises $3 million for charity. It's a good thing that they barred me from playing that 1 minute track or 1 minute clip of one of the songs on my show, because had I been able to get away with that, it probably would have been at least worth half the money they raised for charity. Fuck Viacom CBS. Limp Bizkit uses deepfake technology to include Vladimir Putin, Joe Biden, Tom Cruise, and more in music video. I'm not interested in that because I'm sure it'll be shit. But I want to play you guys something that is fucking genius. I'm gonna need to find it though. It's Lars von Retriever. Is the YouTube channel, and he does a whole bunch of different stuff about where he has like Metal Trump, and I think he's got Metal Biden and things like that. But perhaps his greatest achievement, which you're about to hear right now, is a song called Like Father, Like Parmesan. Hunter Biden sings Polly, Nirvana cover. This, my friends, is such fucking genius. I would love to just meet this dude and shake his hand so I can get a jolt of his inhuman brilliance fired up into my cerebral cortex. Give this a listen and tell me this is not some of the funniest, most brilliant shit you've ever heard in your life.
13 days without sleeping. I still need to fill that hole. Picking through all the rugs, smoking things that resemble drugs. I smoke more Parmesan than anyone you know. Smoking cheese on my knees.
Absolutely fucking brilliant. I mean, let's be honest, Hunter Biden, there should be so much more comedy about this fucking imbecile, but what a brilliant, I mean, a true work of art, in my opinion. We'll give it another 20 seconds.
Picking through rugs and smoking again. Anything that looks like crack cocaine. I smoke more Parmesan than anyone you know. Smoking cheese on my knees. I mean, who cares?
Genius. Absolute fucking genius. If you haven't checked out that channel, Lars von Retriever, it's well worth looking at. It's fucking funny. Also, another channel that I highly recommend, of course, obviously, you get to these things once you've listened to every single one of the Horsemen of the Podcast Apocalypse. Then you've got time, usually on a Saturday, you've got some free time to go check out some other channels. But Kyle Dunnigan, the man, as far as like satirical send-ups of politicians and absolute goons are concerned, he does a really, really funny thing. Well, one of his characters is Trans Trump, and basically the premise of it is Trump goes trans to try and force people to vote for him. If not, they are transphobic, and it is absolutely as insane and genius as it sounds. David Ellefson says Megadeth's early music was written to be played in small venues. I think that's probably correct. Steel Panther's Michael Starr doesn't get bored of being a parody of rock bands. I love it, he says, and they do it extremely well. So rock on, Michael Starr. Let's find one more and then we will wrap it up for this week. Pantera's comeback has been has been in the works for 2 years, says longtime engineer. Exodus' Gary Holt, we're still making crushing killer albums that stand up to any of the classic stuff. I would agree with that. That last Exodus record I thought were fucking brilliant. Tim Ripper Owens, when people say I can't sing, they need to open their fucking ears. It sounds to me like Tim Ripper Owens has been drinking from the same jar of Night Train that old John Corabi gets his kicks from. In a new interview with the Heavy Metal Mayhem radio show, former Judas Priest singer Tim Ripper Owens addressed the fact that he's often a magnet for controversy with some of the things he says or posts on social media. He said, as transcribed by blabbermouth.net, I think the problem is I use a lot of humor when I do interviews or post things on social media. It's funny, you say something 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and some fucking cunts still talk about it. Nobody knows me. They don't know me politically, Tim continued. They don't know me personally. They don't know what I do or who I am. They just know that Tim Ripper Owens who does these interviews. What gets me in trouble is I kind of like to use a lot of humor in interviews. So I'm always saying something funny. Ha ha ha. And next thing you know, it's taken out of context. It is what it is. And that's what you have to deal with, Owen said. You post something, even if it's a positive thing, Listen, I've lost a lot of weight. I used to be a fat fuck. Now I'm thin. It's a positive thing. I'm really healthy and taking care of myself. And then people knock it. You read headlines. It's a nice positive thing. Blabbermouth took it off my Instagram. Posted it, said I lost 50 pounds and blah, blah, blah. And it was nice. And it wasn't like they took it and made something bad out of it. I didn't even read the comments ever. But I still feel these fucking scumbags saying it's a bad thing. I went completely off the rails on that, but that's about as much as much substance as I believe that that entire article has. And even though I actually didn't mind some of the Tim Ripper owns Judas Priest records, as a character, he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that I would necessarily like to hang out with. That being said, I have thoroughly enjoyed hanging out with all of you guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed it also, because it is time for me to wrap up the news for this week. Thank you so much for sticking around until the very end of the podcast. Big shout out to Sebastian and Riku from Devenial Verdict. Make sure you check out Ashblind. Make sure you support all of the bands that I have featured on this podcast, except for the ones that I didn't give a thumbs up to on the news rant segment. And thank you so much to all of you for your support. Loads of really great feedback again for the last couple of episodes, and I really appreciate it. And as I said before, that motivates me to try and put more and more into the show, hopefully make it more entertaining, more enjoyable week in and week out. I'm going to play us out with something a little vintage. If you don't know this band, I suggest you go outside and find somebody to stick your head down the toilet and pull the old chain multiple times until you come up gasping for breath, ready to atone for your sins. The song is Black Magic, the band is Slayer, off the album Show No Mercy. I will see you bad motherfuckers again next Tuesday.